I was woken up by the phone ringing all morning because everyone was calling to check in on my parents since they were both airline pilots.
I was in Omaha, Nebraska, and I was in 7th grade, and I was getting ready for school and heard about the first plane hitting, so I actually watched the second plane hit live on the news that morning before school.
And I was in Miami, Florida, teaching my first pre-K classroom, and all of a sudden I'm getting parents coming to my door picking up their children, and I come to find out through them that they were being dismissed because of the 9/11 attacks.
I was driving to work, listening to the radio, and just remember hearing that a plane had just crashed into one of the Twin Towers.
I was in Peachtree City at Braylon Elementary School. I was teaching, and they called me into the teacher's workroom to see the news about what was going on that day.
I was on Okinawa Island in Japan, and I was in a typhoon lockdown, and it was about 9 o'clock at night, and a friend came and knocked on the door and said, "I think something's happening in New York." And we found an American TV station just in time to watch the second plane go into the second tower.
I was a senior in high school living down in Florida. I was in my second period class, moved over to our third period, watched what happened, watched the planes hit, and then I went to work at the elementary school and helped to sign out the students because a lot of parents were concerned and wanted them home with them.
And I was principal at Spangdale Middle School, and I was sitting in a parent conference, and MPs around at the building asked us all to leave. The parent didn't want to leave because she'd waited a while to get a conference, but then they finally convinced her.
I was in Kaneohe Bay, Hawaii, and I was getting ready to go to work as a procurement buyer and for MCCS.
I was a junior in high school, and my first class was U.S. history, so we watched the events unfold on the news.
I was a junior in high school, and I was in physics class when we found out we had to turn on the TV and saw all that unfold.
I was actually in the hospital when the towers fell. I was with my pediatrician and my parents watching from my hospital bed.
We were getting ready to go to school at Apache Middle School in Arizona when we saw it on the news.
I went to class that day and I brought in a big old TV back in the day to show all the kids what was going on. All the classes rotated through my class to catch up on the details.
Being next to Fort Huachuca, we also had to be afraid because of
lockdown.
I was in Raleigh, North Carolina when the principal came on and made an announcement that there had been an attack. We gathered over 100 8th graders in one classroom and watched it on television.
I was in Vermillion, South Dakota, getting ready to go to class that morning, headed to music history. I made it to class, but none of us stayed.
I was in Sigonella in Sicily, Italy, and I was hosting a parent open house at school.
I was working at the Launchville CDC, and we had to lock down. The post was locked down, and we had to find out how we were going to feed and help all the kids. Meanwhile, all the parents are calling, "You're not going to send my kid out. We can't get to you." So everyone was kind of in a panic.
I was a young captain at Fort Lewis, Washington, and because of the time difference, we were just waking up and getting ready to go to work, and we happened to have the news on like always, and I happened to have an Army buddy that was visiting, and we agreed instantly that we were under attack, so we knew that things were about to get excited and we should expect some deployment orders sometime in the next year.
We watched the bombings of the Trade Center happen live because we were watching the Today Show. The center we worked at was in Shreveport, Louisiana, which is where Barksdale Air Force Base is, and that's where the Air Force One was diverted and the president landed there, which kind of shut everything down, and they set up a command center there to figure out what to do next.
All right, I was skipping class and I was on AOL chat, and that's how I found out, so it was kind of crazy.
When I found out about the Twin Towers coming down, I was actually in my bathroom getting ready for my school day that morning, and I was watching the Today Show and found out about the towers, and then had to go to school and have a conversation with my students about what happened and reassure them.
I was driving home from work and I heard it on the radio on AFN, and I didn't believe it. It was unbelievable to hear it. I didn't know it was, and so I got home, and of course, sure enough, I turned on the TV. It was everywhere, and I called everybody that I knew.
When we first got the news, the kids were arriving to school, and it wasn't shortly after that we had some parents that were being called up to their guard duties, and yeah, it was a very frightening time.
I found out I was on the practice field at Baumholder High School. I was coaching football,
And for me, it was really difficult to understand the gravity until we got inside. The administration pulled us in, and really we could get the totality of it.
I was here teaching in Germany in Würzburg, and I got home and my German neighbors came over because we only had German television and we didn't understand it. They came over and said, something really bad has happened in America, come watch our TV.
I was in Denver, Colorado in elementary school, and then I remember our teacher saying that something had happened and they needed to call our parents to come and pick us up.
I was near Dayton, Ohio, and I was working on reports for a business development job, and I totally isolated myself so I could get my reports accomplished, and I had no idea. And still people started calling me and saying, oh my gosh, there's something you should know.
I was originally supposed to fly on September 11th, but I got my business trip over quicker. My husband called me and asked me, where are you? And I said, why? I'm still at home, I'm on my way to work. And he said, turn on the TV, don't go anywhere, stay home.
I was working in the field in the vineyard with my father, trimming grapevines. At a certain point in time in the morning, my sister came running up the hill, informing both my father that the country was under attack, that we needed to come quickly and see what was going on.
And I saw the news. However, I was teaching 8-year-olds, so I finished the day, called my husband. They had instituted the no-fly zone. He's in the Air Force, and he was sequestered at the base for the next 72 hours.
I was in Oklahoma, Moore, Oklahoma, and I was teaching in a 21st century program, and my mom called me, told me to turn on the news, and then she hung up.